Sammy Davis Jr. and Lorraine White had the most doomed marriage in Hollywood history. Davis was forced into marrying a black woman even though he loved someone else. He was so miserable at their wedding, he drank heavily to cope. But while it was unfair, nothing can forgive what he did to her that night. Sammy was a beloved icon, and nothing could prepare poor Lorraine White for what happened, but more on that later. Sammy Davis Jr. is a trailblazing force in the world of entertainment. His extraordinary career spanned the realms of singing, dancing, acting, and comedy, making him a true Renaissance artist. From his early years as a child prodigy on the vaudeville circuit to become a central figure in the legendary Rat Pack, Davis continually defied racial barriers and captivated audiences worldwide. His story is one of resilience, talent, and cultural impact. Here is the incredible journey of Sammy Davis Jr., a man who danced to his own beat in an era fraught with challenges and triumphs. Sammy Davis Jr.'s destiny seemed intertwined with performance from the start. Born to Elvira Sanchez, a chorus line dancer at Harlem's Apollo, and Sammy Davis Sr., a lifelong dancer and vaudevillian, young Sammy entered the limelight before he could even walk. Thrown into the vaudeville stage as a toddler, he charmed audiences with facial expressions, forming the ultimate show business family. However, familial unity was short-lived. At 3, Davis's parents divorced, and Sammy Sr. returned to the vaudeville circuit. To retain custody of his son, Sammy Sr. took Sammy Jr. on the road. By age 4, Davis had already showcased his talents in 50 cities, relishing the amazing experience shielded from harsh realities by his father. Teaming up with Will Mastin, Davis Jr. and Sr. formed the Will Mastin Trio, securing steady work. Despite their showbiz success, the trio, comprising 3 black men, faced daily prejudice. Adults shielded Davis Jr., attributing incidents to jealousy until reality caught up. Drafted in 1944, 18-year-old Sammy found himself in the 1st Integrated Infantry Unit during World War II, enduring torment from white soldiers. Constantly engaging in fistfights, Davis Jr. suffered physical abuse, including his pancake nose. Soldiers resorted to sadistic tactics, like forcibly painting his skin white and tricking him into drinking urine-laced beer. In the army, Davis confronted the truth concealed by his father and Mastin. It wasn't mere jealousy. Returning to show business in 1945, he emerged transformed, aware that the world was against him. Perhaps this marked the juncture where he decided between genius and madness, determined to prove himself a star despite the adversities he faced, a life he believed he was born for and unwilling to relinquish. In 1951, the Will Mastin Trio graced the stage at Ciro's in Hollywood as the opening act for the night, intending to perform for just 20 minutes. However, the audience included some of Hollywood's biggest stars, and Sammy Davis Jr. showcased his exceptional talent, captivating the crowd with his impressions. The trio extended their set to nearly an hour, marking Davis Jr.'s stylish introduction to Hollywood, a moment that would alter the course of his life. Following his explosive debut at Ciro's, Davis's career soared. By 1953, ABC offered the once small-time vaudevillian his own TV show. Unfortunately, the prevailing prejudices of the time hindered the show's progress. Despite filming a pilot, major advertisers were reluctant to sponsor a program featuring an unknown black man, resulting in the series never coming to fruition. This setback was a significant blow to Davis's burgeoning career, but more formidable challenges were looming. While Davis's show faced obstacles, the Will Mastin Trio experienced unprecedented success. After years of struggling on the road, they secured a headlining gig at the New Frontier Casino in Vegas, earning $7,500 per week. Moreover, long-standing barriers began to crumble as the casino provided them suites instead of confining them into the segregated part of town whenever they played at a white establishment. Sammy Davis Sr. and Will Mastin, recognizing Davis's role in their success, surprised him with a new Cadillac after landing the New Frontier gig, even emblazoning his initials on the passenger side door. But how could they know that this grand gesture could lead to tragedy? Blurring the lines between business and pleasure, Davis spent the day before a recording session in LA engaging in drinking, gambling, and performing in Las Vegas. The following morning, he set out on Route 66 in his new Cadillac. His life was at its pinnacle, until a woman backed her car into his lane, leaving him with no time to react. In the aftermath of the horrific crash, Davis's immediate concern was for his assistant, Charlie, who had been in the car with him. Pulling himself from the wreckage, Davis found Charlie in a distressing state, with a dislocated jaw and blood streaming down his face. Yet, when Charlie saw Davis, his reaction was chilling. He pointed at his face, closed his eyes, and emitted a harrowing moan. Davis, reaching up to his face, discovered his own eyeball dangling by his face. The crash had caused his face to collide directly with the steering wheel, a particularly unfortunate outcome given the Cadillac's design featuring a sleek bullet-shaped horn on the steering wheel, and his face had gone right through it during the crash. In fact, Cadillac later modified the wheel design in response to Davis's accident, although it was too late to save his eye. When Davis found out his eyeball hanging, he instinctively attempted to push it back in, a futile effort. Regrettably, Davis lost his left eye, and the agonizing pain was compounded by a more profound fear. Sammy Davis Jr. had dedicated his entire life to singing, dancing, and performing on stage. Now faced with a single eye, he wondered if his burgeoning career had come to a premature end. Throughout his recovery, Davis diligently reworked his routine, painstakingly relearning balance. Within a few weeks, he cautiously returned to the stage, surprised by the overwhelming response he received. During his comeback performance at Ciro's, half of Hollywood turned out to support him, including luminaries such as Cary Grant, Spencer Tracy, Gary Cooper, June Allison, and Frank Sinatra. Davis expressed, "Never had I felt so much a part of show business. All that it had given me materially was nothing compared to the kinship I felt for all these people." Over time, Sammy's talent surpassed that of his mentors. While Davis Sr. stepped aside gracefully, Will Mastin struggled to relinquish the limelight. Despite Davis Jr. billing himself as the Will Mastin Trio throughout his career, even after going solo, Mastin continued to travel with him. Although he would go to great lengths to prepare for shows, including dressing up in full costume and makeup, Mastin never took the stage. By the late 1950s, Sammy Davis Jr. had reached the pinnacle of his performing prowess, earning $25,000 per week at the Sands Casino, achieving radio success with hit singles, and securing a second shot at television. However, as his success grew, so did the prejudice he faced. Determined to strike back, Davis, now a bona fide star, sought a way to challenge the discrimination. Frustrated with the injustices and indignities he endured, Davis conceived a plan to defy societal norms. He aimed to date the, and I quote, "the whitest, most famous chick in the world," and flaunt the relationship to make a statement. This led him to pursue relationships with various women during his rise, ranging from one-night stands to more casual encounters. However, everything changed one night in 1957 at Chicago's Chez Paris when he took the stage and captivated the audience, reserving his attention solely for a woman named Kim Novak. Their affair, marked by secrecy and defiance, would eventually become public knowledge, creating a scandal in the racially charged atmosphere of the 1950s. Maintaining secrecy in a relationship was an uphill battle in Hollywood. One evening, Davis and Novak made the mistake of getting close at a party hosted by Tony Curtis. Seizing the opportunity, an observant guest recognized the potential scandal and promptly informed Dorothy Kilgallen, the gossip columnist for the sensationalist Hearst newspapers. The attempt to keep the relationship discreet was effectively shattered. Although Dorothy Kilgallen played coy, her subsequent gossip column left little to the imagination. Her blind item reportedly said, "Which top female movie star, KN, is seriously dating which big-name entertainer, SD?" The public was scandalized, but the revelation had more significant consequences for Davis and Novak. Now the studio heads were aware of their relationship, marking a perilous turn of events. Realizing the jig was up, Davis immediately contacted Novak upon seeing the column. However, Novak was not ready to concede defeat. Asserting her independence from the studio, she invited him to her Beverly Hills home for spaghetti, determined to weather the storm of public scrutiny. Little did she anticipate the extent to which Harry Cohn, the notorious head of Columbia Studios, would go to preserve the image of his blonde star. Growing increasingly apprehensive, Davis recognized Novak's rebellion against the rules imposed upon her. However, he also felt a mix of anger and determination to defy the prejudice he had endured throughout his life. Despite public pressure, they continued their relationship, but it proved far from easy. With Harry Cohn's spies monitoring Novak and reporters eager for a scandal, Davis and Novak went to great lengths to evade attention. Davis, one of the country's biggest performers, had to resort to hiding in the back seat of a car, concealed under a rug when visiting Novak's house. The humiliation was palpable, and worse challenges loomed on the horizon. Sammy Davis Jr. desired rebellion, but antagonizing Harry Cohn was a perilous proposition. Cohn, with ties to the underworld, resorted to extreme measures to assert control. Upon realizing that Davis and Novak were committed to their relationship, Cohn orchestrated Davis's kidnapping for several hours to instill fear. He also delivered a chilling ultimatum to Davis's father. Unless Davis married a black woman promptly, men would come to break his legs and take out his remaining eye. The situation reached a breaking point for Davis and Novak. In a state of urgency, Davis's assistant, Arthur Silber, found him in their suite at the Sands Hotel, desperately searching through his address book. When questioned, Davis explained, "I got the call this morning. I have to marry a black chick, and I'm looking for someone to marry." Eventually, he identified a local dancer named Lorraine White, and in a truly scandalous turn of events, he called her with a proposition. Davis extended an invitation to White to visit his suite, where he dropped a bombshell. He proposed to pay her for a marriage that would be dissolved after a year, hoping to appease the threats from the mob. White reluctantly agreed, and the arrangement commenced. Despite his internal turmoil, Davis had no other recourse. To compound matters, people seemed genuinely delighted for him. Evelyn Cunningham, a prominent figure in the black press, was the first to congratulate Davis on his impending marriage. Cunningham, who had previously criticized Davis's relationship with Kim Novak, expressed joy that he had chosen a black woman. Unaware of the underlying deception, she would likely have had a different reaction had she known the truth. Sammy Davis Jr.'s first wedding lacked romance. Held in the Sands Emerald Room, the bride arrived 40 minutes late for a ceremony that lasted a mere 2 minutes. Davis and White became man and wife, both far from thrilled, although White ensured she benefited from the situation. Upon becoming Mrs. Sammy Davis Jr., Lorraine White indulged in a lavish shopping spree, with Jet magazine featuring a photo of her with 20 new pairs of shoes. Davis showered her with additional gifts in gratitude for her role in extricating him from a precarious situation. However, White returned alone to the Sands presidential suite, leaving Davis increasingly miserable. After 6 months of a sham marriage, Davis paid White $25,000 for a divorce, though the legal process dragged on for 3 years. Meanwhile, Kim Novak, facing consequences for her association with Davis, distanced herself. Despite the end of Davis's marriage to White, he and Novak gradually drifted apart, closing that chapter of his life as an exciting new one unfolded. In 1959, Frank Sinatra officially welcomed Sammy Davis Jr. into his Rat Pack, a group initially intended to be called the Klan. Not sure what Sinatra was thinking, but Davis, as a sole black member, pointed out the negative connotations, and rightfully so. Thank goodness Lauren Bacall once said they looked like a pack of rats after seeing them in a disheveled state one night, prompting Davis to coin the term the Rat Pack, and the rest, they say, is history. The Rat Pack went on to achieve unparalleled success in the 1960s. This dynamic ensemble, known for their electrifying performances on stage and their off-stage camaraderie, became synonymous with the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas. The Rat Pack's success wasn't just about the music, it was a cultural phenomenon. Sadly, Davis cannot say the same about his love life. In 1960, he fell in love with another blonde bombshell, Swedish actress May-Britt. After a whirlwind romance, they became engaged. Freed from the influence of Cohn, Davis hoped to marry someone he genuinely loved. Unfortunately, joining the Rat Pack brought him newfound fame, once again jeopardizing his love life. Politics now posed a threat to his union with Britt. During John F. Kennedy's presidential campaign, in which Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack were actively involved, Davis joined his friends on stage at the Democratic National Convention, only to face a resounding booing from the audience. Public awareness of his relationship with Britt coincided with a mere 4% support for interracial marriage in polls, resulting in a swift backlash. The Kennedy campaign received hate mail targeting Davis, and campaign officials pressured Sinatra, slated to be the best man at Davis and Britt's wedding, not to attend. Fearing that their association with Davis's scandalous relationship would jeopardize the presidency, Davis made a difficult decision. He chose to postpone the wedding until after the election, a gesture that reportedly moved Sinatra to tears. Kennedy won the election, and 5 days later, Sinatra stood by Davis at the altar. However, this union did not lead to a happily ever after. Being married to Sammy Davis Jr. proved challenging. Consumed by his relentless career, Davis spent minimal time at home with his family, opting for the allure of the stage. And despite having a daughter, Tracy, the couple adopted 2 sons, Mark and Jeff, under mysterious circumstances. But not even their kids can save them for the challenges they had faced, and their marriage was slowly failing. And Davis's hard years began to take a toll. His 8-year marriage ended, and Davis descended into a spiral of vices, drinking, smoking, and an intensified pursuit of women. Although still recognized as the greatest performer in show business, the 1970s marked a period when Davis became almost unrecognizable. Davis's assistant observed the stark transformation in his boss. Once spending evenings with a Rat Pack, Davis now surrounded himself with a disreputable entourage. He began traveling with a trunk full of adult films, regularly screening them at increasingly debaucherous parties. Those close to Davis sensed something haunting him, but they were powerless to prevent this alarming downward trajectory. Despite winning over white audiences, Davis knew that acceptance from black audiences eluded him. This might explain his involvement with his third and final wife, Altavice Gore. He thought that perhaps marrying a black woman genuinely would secure the acceptance he sought. Gore, now Altavice Davis, viewed her union with Sammy Davis Jr. as a stroke of luck, unaware that it would turn into a curse. Once again, Davis found himself in a marriage not entirely of his choosing, and it brought little joy to his wife. In addition to substances and alcohol, Davis had developed an addiction to explicit films, leading to unwelcome demands on Gore's part. She was now stuck in a marriage of convenience with a man descending further into madness. Gore's life would soon take a turn for the worse, even after her relationship with Davis ended. While residing with Gore, Davis frequently organized film screenings for his friends. Paul Anka recounts an incident where Davis hosted a screening for approximately 40 of Hollywood's elite. As the audience settled in with their popcorn, Deep Throat unexpectedly appeared on the screen, shocking and embarrassing everyone. However, Davis was far from finished. Davis forged a friendship with Linda Lovelace, the star of Deep Throat, and persuaded his wife to participate in wild escapades that even Sinatra found repulsive. No small feat considering Sinatra's own adventurous spirit. Life at the Davis mansion spiraled out of control, and not even Davis's family could rein him in. In fact, he dragged them down with him. Davis had employed his adopted son Mark as an assistant stage manager, hoping for some quality father-son time. However, their relationship soured when they clashed over a Vegas dancer Mark was dating. Davis, then 72, desired the woman for himself, and unable to win her over, stopped speaking to Mark for 8 months. The reconciliation only occurred because Davis had a startling revelation. Despite adopting 2 boys under mysterious circumstances, Mark Davis revealed that his adoption wasn't entirely accurate. On his deathbed in 1990, Davis called Mark saying, "You are my son," revealing that he was his biological father. It turned out Davis hadn't been faithful during his marriage to Maybrit. Shaken by this revelation, Mark sought proof and discovered his birth certificate listing Sammy Davis Jr. as his father. Under mother, Maybrit was named, but she denied being Mark's mother. Speculation arose that Mark might be the result of Davis's relationship with another white woman, kept secret due to societal prejudice. The true identity of Mark's mother remains a mystery. Davis's confession to his son wasn't spontaneous. He was dying. Struggling with throat issues since 1988, Davis, a heavy smoker, developed throat cancer. Despite the progression of the disease, his voice seemingly improved, but surgery became imperative. Faced with an ultimatum, surgery with the risk of never singing again, Davis, unwilling to lose his voice, chose not to undergo the procedure, acknowledging that his end was near. Sadly, Davis's vulnerability was exploited by his employees, who allegedly looted his home, taking valuable artwork, jewelry, and priceless memorabilia, leaving Davis and his heirs in dire financial straits. On May 16, 1990, Davis succumbed to his illness. The very next day, the unfeeling IRS descended upon his mansion to seize his assets. It turned out Davis was not quite current on his taxes, owing over $7 million. The family tallied what remained after the looting and reached a grim conclusion. So, what did Altavice Davis get after enduring years of humiliation in a loveless marriage? Millions of dollars in debt. Since she and Davis had filed joint tax returns, she inherited his tax liabilities. Gore struck a deal with the IRS and paid off most of it by liquidating Davis's properties and other assets. And in the end, she got nothing. Davis's wife no longer lived a life of excess, unless you count an excess of sadness. According to the book Deconstructing Sammy, Gore lived for a time in an apartment with no refrigerator and a severe cockroach infestation. Any income she had came from bottles she found in neighborhood dumpsters. And in 2009, a stroke sadly ended her life. Sammy Davis Jr.'s marriage to Altavice Gore was an absolute horror story, but it still fared better than his sham union with Lorraine White. While it's not uncommon for a groom to overindulge at the reception, on the day of his wedding with White, Davis went way over the edge, likely due to marrying a woman he didn't love. This doesn't excuse his actions, though. After the nuptials, Davis was escorting his bride to the honeymoon suite when he suddenly snapped and attempted to choke her out. How terrifying. Fortunately, White managed to break free and escape, but Davis's harrowing night wasn't over. Later that same night, Davis's personal assistant checked up on him. What he discovered in Davis's hotel room left him in shock. Davis had a revolver pointed at his head. He looked at his assistant and cried, "Why won't they let me live my life?" Fortunately, the assistant diffused the situation, and Davis proceeded with his plans to divorce White 6 months later. Sammy Davis Jr.'s life was a symphony of triumphs and tribulations, a journey marked by dazzling highs on the stage and harrowing lows in his personal life. From his early days as a child performer, thrust into the limelight, to his pivotal role in breaking racial barriers in show business, Davis captivated audiences with his extraordinary talents. As his star ascended, Davis became a cultural icon, contributing to the Rat Pack legacy. In the final act of his life, Sammy Davis Jr. confronted mortality with resilience and refused to sacrifice his voice even as death loomed. Sammy Davis Jr.'s story is an enduring power of talent and never giving up, reminding us that even the brightest stars must navigate the darkness to find their truest light. For more stories on old Hollywood personalities, don't forget to subscribe and like this video.